Are you ready to stop staring at your canvas and actually start painting, but you don't know how to get started and you're scared? Then join me in this video. I have a really simple way to get started and some tips that will help you if you're a little bit nervous. So let's go. So you need a canvas. This was an 8x10 canvas. It's a gallery wrapped, meaning it has a thicker edge, a wider edge to it. I have a couple jars with a little bit of water in it, just like half an inch of water. I have some paint, some acrylic paint. This is just a raw sienna. So you could use a liquid acrylic or, this one's kind of a medium viscosity. And so I'm gonna use that. I need kind of a large brush. Doesn't have to be flat, but it works for covering the canvas. You could go larger than this or smaller depending on the size of your canvas. But this is, I think, a 1 inch, and it's good for an 8x10. I also need something to put my paint on. Could be a plate, could be a palette like this. And I have, for a bit later, some pencils, and you might, depending on the size of your canvas, want to use a ruler as well, so have that on hand. You probably have a picture in mind already, but if you don't, you can still do this start to getting your canvas ready for painting. Okay, so first we need to take this off. So I'm going to take this wrapping off the canvas, if you have a wrapping on yours. Some of it is recyclable and some of it not. Oh, just felt like it was glued on, and that is garbage. Make sure you throw that away. So that's recyclable. Good. Okay. Right now it doesn't matter which way I have my canvas. I'm not really sure what I'm going to paint yet, but I'm just going to get the canvas ready. This is just getting ready for your painting. So what I'm going to do next is prep my paint. So I'm going to put some paint right on here. You could put it right on your canvas if you want. It looks like I got a little globby glob there. That's a technical term, by the way. Oh, you know what? One thing I missed is make sure you have some kind of rag. So this is a paint specific rag. This is not your something you're going to use in your kitchen afterwards. This is devoted to your art. I'm gonna move these pencils out of the way. I'm gonna wet my brush. My brush is dry right now. Just dip it in. Wakes it up. Just wake it up. Maybe you guys a little bit to see better. There we go. Wake that up. Wipe off the excess. You can even dab off the excess. I'm going to use a little bit more water to paint for this bit anyway, so I don't have to make sure my brush is too dry. I'm probably going to be adding more water to this mix anyways, so actually bring in more water. Just bring in some more with my brush. If you're using a liquid acrylic, it's still concentrated, so you're still going to want to add water to it for this function. What we're doing right now is we're toning the canvas. So, I don't know, I guess it's kind of funny that canvases come white. Oh, I got a little drop, that's okay. Because most often people will tone the canvas. So, I don't know, maybe we should just be making a gesso that is raw sienna like. I don't know, what do you guys think? If you've been painting a long time, maybe you already know how to do this. So I'm just mixing my paint to thin it down a little bit. I don't want it to be a thick layer. We're going to be putting a thin layer of paint on the whole canvas. You don't really have to cover the edges right now, but just make sure that you're going over the edge. I want to make sure that my painting, like this is the focus of my painting. So I like to paint my edges black anyways, but if you like to extend your painting to your edge, then you're going to want to repeat this pattern onto the sides. So let's see how that is. Oh, there we go. That's good. So I'm just going to use a side-to-side stroke, and you can see when I get to my edge, I'm brushing the corners like that. Now, what I do want to make sure, even though I'm not worrying too much about my edge and getting that top edge, I'm going to show you this. When I did that, a lot of paint just pooled. So even though I'm not exactly looking to paint my edge, it can be super messy. It doesn't really matter. I just don't want a pool of paint because that's going to create some texture, and I don't really want, I want it to be a nice smooth edge. So see how it's pooled right there? Just brush off the pooling before it dries. Make sure you get right into the corners and make sure you've covered all of that. I just don't want any white showing on the edge, because then when I go to paint my edge black, I don't want to have to bring my edge onto the front at all. So let's keep going. Don't get distracted and start yakking like I was doing just now. I'm explaining to you, but if you only finished half of it, it's not going to be a big deal. If you had to mix a little bit more, get a little more paint, it's okay. I'm just covering. When we do this, we're toning our canvas. What this does is it helps us understand light and dark a bit better when we start painting on whatever we're painting. When we have a really bright white in front of us, it can throw off our coloring choices and everything. So that's why it's recommended to start your painting this way. Getting that edge. So I just want to cover the canvas, and it just gives it, when I've watered it down, it gives it kind of a little bit of like that translucent appeal. And I think it works for the eye better. It helps you kind of get those first colors on there more accurately, because the white kind of tricks the brain a little bit. I just want to make sure that my edges are nice and covered right up to that rim. Oh, I don't want any globs. So now's the time while your painting is wet. If you get any globs, if you're worried, if your canvas has been sitting out for a while, you might want to even dust it before you go ahead and begin this process. But mine just came out of a package, so didn't really think to dust it before. But if it's been sitting around in a space and needs to be dusted, maybe try that first. So that's our first step. We're going to let this fully dry before we move on to the next step. But that's really how you basically start the painting. If you want to get some extras on what I would do next, then stick around. Oh, make sure you wash your brush thoroughly. You guys, it's really cold. My hands are like purple. We've got our furnace set to pretty low right now, just because we're transitioning from summer to fall to winter. Our fall's pretty short where I live. So I have this one, why do I have two jars? This jar is going to be my first jar for washing out the paint. And then just to make sure that I've fully washed it out, I'm going to take my cleaner one. It's going to be kind of like my check, like, okay, is my brush actually clean? There you go. And maybe you want to wash this off as well. And then you're letting this dry. It doesn't take very long to dry. And we'll be back with the next step. Okay, we're ready for the next step. My painting is completely dry. There's no dampness to it. I can do this. It's completely dry. That means I'm ready for the next step. The next step totally depends on how you like to do things. But if you're a complete beginner, then my recommendation is to draw on your subject matter. At least sketch it out. It doesn't have to be done precisely or with too much detail. The idea is you're mapping out your canvas. So whatever you feel most comfortable with. Maybe you want to grid it out. If you're drawing something that has, you want to make sure your placement is more precise, then you can draw out a grid. Depends on what you're painting and how you like to work. But basically we have to figure out where things are gonna go before we start painting anything. And that's how I like to proceed. So I finally found, sometimes it takes a while to decide what to paint, but I found a painting that I would like to paint and a photograph that I'd like to paint. And I'm going to use an app. I already did. I used an app to grid it out. You can see the artist there, Trina Wheaton. If you're using a photograph, make sure you have permission from the photographer. That's their art. You don't want anyone stealing your art, so make sure that you're following the same process of making sure you have permission. Okay, so anyways, I do have permission to use this, and I've already created a grid using an app that you can get various apps, I'm sure, to create grids. And if you want to use your phone or not, or print the picture so you have it out and then you can draw a grid on it. So basically you have your picture ready to go. This one, I could just kind of sketch out, or you can draw the grid. So I'm going to show you how to do grid method if you're interested. I do have more detailed stuff in my classes that I have online, but I'm just going to go in and start gridding out. So basically I want to make markings. Now you can use pastel, or I often will use just like a pencil crayon. So something that's going to kind of show up but not be too bold. So I'm just going to make a mark at the inch points. If I actually am looking and can see the inch points, oh my goodness, just made a mistake there. This ruler is a bit smaller when it comes to those. The other nifty tool I want to show you is a ruler that has crossbeam at the top. Ta-da! So the beauty of this one is it actually shows me inch marks like that too. So I can literally go across and it's going to give me a nice straight across line. If you don't have a ruler like this, that's okay. Just go across, make sure both sides you've marked out an inch, and then draw lines and do the same crosswise. So let's give this a go. Make sure you're holding your ruler straight. I know it was that first mark. Can always double check if you're not sure. So I could be using up here to mark those inch markings. All right, so now that I have that set, also I should mention when you're doing this, you want to make sure you have the same grid set up on your image. Oh, there's my puppy and myself. The same image all set. So I did an 8x10 square. So just little tidbits. I can use a different color now to sketch out the position of everything. So the key elements in this image, now this isn't a super complicated image. I probably could have just sketched it out without using these grids. So I just wanted to show you that extra tool and tip that you can do, is getting the nose correct, and just the distance between the nose and eyes and everything like that is super helpful. So you have to kind of count along 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you have it printed out, if you've printed this out and you've drawn your grid, you can actually do, I would do A through whatever across the top, and then 1 through whatever along the side, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can know, it's like A1, what's in that square. And you can do it very, just focus on one square at a time and kind of go through and draw the rest. And that can really help somebody that's just beginning and that struggles to see like how the whole image is going to work together. Even a seasoned artist can use that. So you can go into this first square and see what is showing. Like I have some idea, and then I go into the next square and I kind of check. Here, we'll zoom in a little bit. That's what I like about having this on my phone, is I can zoom it right in, is getting it along the right part. Like this is past halfway, so I'm gonna go past halfway here, right? So that's how it's gonna help me get a more correct image. And just, yeah, it just helps out. It's just a nice tip, a nice tool, practice to use if you're just learning, or you want to make sure that the proportions are really accurate. I'm just gonna make some messy lines along there. So in the second square, we have some showing here. Okay, so now that we've sketched it on, you have everything kind of in place. You've mapped out your piece and you're ready to start painting. Now, depending on how you like to work will kind of depend on what steps you want to take. Some people like to start in the center and then work their way out. Other people like to block out their colors and then add in detail on top of that with layering. And that's how I often work. Might do things differently with this one, but I think it depends on the painting that you've selected. So I'm going to look at that section there and see from my reference photo what I have there. It's kind of this red section there from another cow. So I could just kind of paint that section with, you know, a solid color and then add in my detailing with the fur and that kind of thing, and just decide whether I want to make it really kind of a blurred out or in focus. And then the other way you could do it is kind of focus on the detailing. What is the picture focused on? The eyes, the face. Start with that and then work your way out. So, you know, there's not a right or wrong way to do that. If you're following some kind of tutorial, that might help. But I personally like to kind of block out my colors and then add layering so that I have those underneath colors helping guide the piece. Well, I know that's just the start and you still have a painting to complete, but I have other resources that can help you do that. So I hope you take advantage of those. I have some online Skillshare classes that you can take if you want more of a step-by-step class. I'm going to be doing some live painting classes here. So if you're up for that, you need more tips and you want to paint with acrylic paints, then make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. All right, thanks so much. Have a wonderful day and we'll see you next time.